the only thing you can trust is that you're just the spirit that's interpreting the world. You're just a thing that thinks. You can't separate yourself from thinking. Only thing you can know is that you exist, and that's the only thing that's certain. And he argues that if our senses have tricked us, like even once, then like how can we trust them at all? So if you're just like cloud watching and your mind puts these clouds together and forms an elephant, that could be like the clouds haven't changed at all. It's just your brain's kind of deceived you to construct like a false image. And so he says the earth, the sky, the stars, and all other objects which I was in the habit of perceiving by the senses, but what that was, that I clearly perceived in them nothing more than the ideas and thoughts of these objects were presented in my mind. So it's all about how things, like, not the external physical world as something that exists, but how it affects your mind. And he uses the example of wax, and how the physical thing of wax itself, it changes form, it melts and reshapes, and but you still know it's wax even though it has a different physical form, and that's not through the senses, it's through the mind. And so wax exists not because you can touch it and see it, but because you can doubt it, and it makes you think. That's the thing about that. He always says in correlation to the mind has to either make you doubt or make you think. And if your perception of the wax seem more distinct, then now you know yourself more distinctly. So how these things, for it to be real, it kind of have to change you. Like if you was to see it like a bit of art, that would change you. That would change the way you think. It would change the way you doubt. And then that's more real than something that doesn't. So and that transference of seeing something and then making you think, Descartes refers to that as like a divine essence. That's what he calls it, the divine essence. So from all this kind of bits of theory, my conclusion, which I differentiate from Descartes' conclusion, Descartes' conclusion is there's multiple, but he says like a cause must have at least as much reality as its effect. So something more real can come from something less real. And I think that there's my conclusion is that there's different extents of real, there's different levels to real. And I think if we take an example of a structure where I'm holding a pencil, and you think to yourself, well, this pencil right here is physical, it definitely exists. But, what about the intangible of a flow state that I'm getting when I'm drawing? Well, is that on the scale, is that more real or less real than the pencil? And I think the flow state is more real than the pencil. And then you go next on the scale and you say, well, what the meaning I get from drawing and the meaning I get from being in the flow state. And I think that's then even more real than the flow state on the pencil. And then you got the muse dropping ideas into my head about what to draw. And I would say that's more real than everything. My kind of mode of thinking was like that. If you need to have the drawing activity, I wouldn't be doing that if it wasn't put me in a flow state, and then it wasn't to be meaningful, and then the ideas weren't coming anyway. So that's with that example. And then you can go with, well, something like if I take if I really have a really strong desire for a Cadbury's cream egg right now, what's more real, the Cadbury's cream egg or the desire for the Cadbury's cream egg? Well, I would say the desire, because without the desire, well, the chocolate wouldn't exist because I wouldn't be buying it. And so you have this different hierarchy of things that exist, and the average person says, well, no, the Cadbury's cream egg, that I can prove it. I can prove it's there. I can kind of prove flow state, and that's kind of real. But I don't know about the meaning, and I definitely don't know about, well, I definitely don't know about the muse putting ideas into my head. I can't prove that, but I go, no, the metaphysical is more real than the physical. And well, like if you, I thought the example of, well, if I'm in a restaurant, I'm in this physical environment, but if I'm daydreaming, then I'm no longer in the restaurant. I'm in a daydream. Like if you see someone on a menu and it reminds you of a previous relationship, then you're no longer in a restaurant anymore. You're like the restaurant doesn't exist. What exists is the emotion of the hatred of your ex. Like that emotion has teleported you into a different reality.
And a point I can add to that is, let's say you're in the same restaurant, but you go to have a meal with your mum, right? Or you go to have a meal with a colleague at work to discuss a project, or you go out for a meal with your partner or a girl that you like. The context around each of those situations is going to affect the way that you feel emotionally in that situation drastically, depending on your relationship with your mum, or how you feel about that work project, or you feel about this girl or whatever. But the restaurant, the real thing in a materialist sense, stays the same. But your experience of the restaurant, which in your argument is more real because it's your first-hand, your emotional and cellular experience level, is different. So then, what's more real, the context and the emotion, or the physical place? Yeah, keep going.
I reckon this metaphysical world. I think this is where old people live in more. I think that's why these old people are all kind of chill and satisfied with just like going to a bar and then circling around and pushing their sort of walking stick around a park, and that's happy to them because they're not really living in that physical world. They're living in the mental world of the last like 70 years. And all the emotions that rotate and contemplate their past with that. And I think that this is exactly what Plato meant with the theory of the forms. You have this physical world at the bottom, the lower form of, I'm going to spend my day in my room eating chocolate, and that's a total lower form. Then a higher form that gives you loads of depth in the present moment with passion and justice and all these metaphysical like feelings. And then the question is, well, what do you do about that? Because then we'd come to the conclusion of, we want to live in this higher form of great metaphysics. Like, how do we get away from the physical world, and how do we do this? And
it's tough, isn't it? Yeah, go on, finish your point, because I have a lot.
That was a good break to let you talk.
Well, I was going to say, like, okay, with this all being true, well, true is a weird word to use in that context, but let's say if we take your argument into consideration, right, and we're saying that things that are less physically real and objectively real, things that we can't measure, and the things that are more subjective and feel more real to us because they're more meaningful and they're more emotionally salient than the physical world and physical resources and stuff, then what should we value most? And the obvious answer then is to value the things that can't really be measured. And then, okay, well, are we then still talking about this unspeakable world? This Alan Watts talks about this idea of the right hemisphere world that cannot really be explained or pinned down or measured, that's in its entire context, in its overwhelming, awe-inspiring, meaningful context. And then your question of, well, what do we do about that, is a really interesting one, because we are physical beings. We have to be grounded in our own physicality, our own mortality, our own biology. We have to exist in this world. We have to eat, we have to sleep, we have to shit, we have to drive to the supermarket and buy food, we have to go and work a job to earn money so we can pay rent. And so like we have to be engaged in the physical world in some way, but we also have to know that the real valuable shit is abstract. It's meta. It's not grounded in the physical world. It's in our own minds. It's in our spirit. It's in the unspeakable plane that exists above everything else. That's oriented by your spiritual state of presence, your state of being, your relationship to other people, your relationship to nature. And it's a true thing, Jacob. And I think this is what spirituality is, minus the woo-woo. Like I hate that sort of spirituality is so attached to this idea of, people trying to sell you crystals and shit, and like, you know, books like The Secret by Rhonda Byrne and all that kind of stuff, and the law of attraction, all this kind of like, that's not what we mean at all. We're just two guys reading about philosophy and reading about these ideas and actually thinking about our own experiences and our own emotions and what matters to us. And we're coming to this idea that what the hell's going on? We like things that are less real, that are less typically materially seen as real. And what the hell are you supposed to do with that information at 20 years old, man? I think you have to understand that you're in the world, not of the world. You know, you have to go out and do the stuff in the physical world to get by. But really, when you retire into yourself, whether that's when you go to bed or when you wake up in the morning, you have to understand that I am having an experience. I am having an experience in this physical plane, but this is not all there is. There's so much more to reality than just what I can touch and what my human senses can detect. And sort of living with that as a mantra is useful, I think. But it's a question that, you know, it might take me the next 50 years to answer, but I'm excited for it, man.
No, that was good. I like the you're in the world and not of the world. I was thinking about the answer for this for a good hour, and my conclusion I came to was, I think you need to get out the lower form, and the way you do that is you block yourself out from it. So I take the example from I think it was Odyssey with Odysseus, and he's in a sailing boat, and he needs to get somewhere, and he comes across these sirens, which are women who are half fish, and the top is this beautiful woman, the top half. And this this story to me represents the lower form of this physical, this lust, and the.
Well, that's the thing. Let me just add this extra bit about the sirens. So they're like a mythological creature that would sing, had this beautiful song that would then, and this very attractive upper female body that would lure male sailors into like the rocks to then crash their boats, and they would like eat them or whatever, some shit like that, which is like it's a temptation symbol. Carry on.
Yeah. And the way that Odysseus and the sailors got past these sirens was the men all put like beeswax. They filled their ears with honey, or filled their ears with some sort of thing that made them not hear the temptation. And Odysseus, he, for some reason, I didn't read it properly, but he strapped himself to the ship, tied round, and he told his men not to untangle him until they were past. And so it was known as the only person that's heard the siren's law and lived past it. And So what I take from that is, well, take the lower form right now of social media, and I mean, you've deleted it. I only go on it for business, and that we've blocked it out. That lower form doesn't exist to us. This kind of physical and lower self and physical world, and we're full of superficialities. It doesn't exist to us. We're not in that world, and now we're able to rise up the forms because of that. And so then the question is, how do you rise up the forms, and how do you then engage with reality? Because we're no longer living in this sort of devilish reality. We have potential to move up. So I think the answer comes with meta skills and like
awareness as well, to notice what the temptation is, and self-control. Yeah, virtues like self-control for sure.
Yeah, I think we develop these metaphysical skills and virtues and stuff like confidence. Like it's quite funny. Your tell the story of the courgettes, where you kind of used a meta skill.
Well, yeah, I think story of the courgettes. I'll say it very briefly. Basically, if you don't go to, like, if you go to a supermarket, you don't have a shopping bag with you, right? And you don't want to buy one of their like plastic shopping bags. Number one, because you don't want to hurt the planet, and number two, you don't want to spend like 15p on it. A quick little cheat code of life is there are vegetable rows that just are boxes and boxes of, like, you know, all your vegetables, your onions, your potatoes, your courgettes, your carrots, all that kind of shit. And usually there's one box on the row that has like 3 vegetables in it that's just about to run out. My tip is, and I've learned this from the guy I live with, my housemate, one of my best mates, but you take the last few vegetables from one box and put it in another box of like carrots or whatever, if it's carrots, and then you have a box to use that you then take your groceries in, that you then take home and you can recycle, right? It's not against any rules, but it's just an easy way to like seemed cool. And I remember, the first time I did it with a girl, she was just like absolutely baffled by the fact that this was something I was allowed to do. But I just played along with it, and no one questions it. And you take your box home, and then you recycle it, in your normal recycling, and you don't have to buy a plastic bag. And it means that I never really go to a supermarket with a bag now, because I know I can just use a vegetable box. So that's I guess that's what's that. That's the meta skill of confidence, and be able to just not be just like confined into rules of how people usually behave, and like the stress of, I haven't got my shopping bag with me. It's all right. There's loads of boxes around. Just grab one. You know what I mean?
It's the spirit of acting like a king to be treated like one that filled you. It's not about the corsets. It's about the boldness to do that.